Hey, we had just a little bit of thunderstorm action last night. MCS coming in from Oklahoma. And we didn't get any rain down here, but we cleared out pretty good here around 3 or 4 o'clock when this footage was shot. And I'm back again. I had to catch up on a little bit of sleep here. And we're just checking things out outside, and not much of a change there, a little bit of cirrus, and in the distance we can see some of that tropical stratocumulus out there to the southwest. So it brings us to the charts here. Let's see, what do we got? We got a few things going on. Of course, tropical weather, and we've got Brett out there in the Caribbean, and potential tropical cyclone 3 moving swiftly to the north. And I'll go ahead and give you the tracks on that. When I checked Google Earth here, the tracks were not really loading, so I'm going to try to reload this. Let me delete it. And we'll start out with potential tropical cyclone 3. Okay, here it comes. Here comes the data. And we've sort of been watching this for the past 5 or 6 days. There's been pressure, kind of a low pressure anomaly in the western Gulf, and that sort of tracked up towards Texas with the previous model runs. And let's see if we can bring that up here. Yeah, there we go. There's the approximate position, and we've got a pretty wide selection of tracks here. And one thing that we've noticed is that there's a trend towards the west compared to last night. The swaths we had yesterday were coming up on western Louisiana to about Alabama, maybe the western panhandle. And now we're seeing it projected into the Louisiana area here. So that's kind of significant there. And what I like to do is kind of look at the outliers and see what those are. In this case, the one furthest out to the right, OCDS, that one I don't recognize at all. I'm sure some of you are probably familiar with this. AP19, AP04, those are ensemble models for, I'm not sure what the AP ones are. Let me take the western tracks. And now here we've got a larger diversity of tracks, and some of them even go onto the South Padre Island, Corpus Christi, down to Brownsville. Okay, so we've got CPO6, a couple of ensembles heading out that way. And let me see if I can root out the official forecast here. So give me just a second. I got to scroll up to the top here and do this. Take away some of these tracks and then drop in the official one here. So I'm looking through the list here. In HC, well, we've got the high resolution rapid refresh. I'm sorry, the high resolution WRF. So there's that right there. We'll throw that in there. The let's see here, I'm scrolling through the list. Aviation. And let's see here. Some of the abbreviations here I've kind of forgotten since last season, but I don't see any official forecast on here, and that's probably since we've just got a potential tropical cyclone still on the weak side. And then the other one we have is, of course, Brett, and let me see if I can bring that up here. And that's reminiscent of Ivan, going very far south there towards the Venezuelan coast, so frictional effects may factor in, and also the low latitude promotes rapid filling of the center. And let me bring up the grid here and maybe orient this to true north. Yeah, you can see how close we are to the equator, and this is about the southernmost limit for tropical storms, so we're pretty far south. Once you get south of that, the lack of Coriolis effect means the lows tend to fill pretty rapidly. Frictional effects over land also accelerate that too, so a lot of what happens is going to depend on how close this comes to the Venezuelan coast. And let me see if I can ferret out the official forecast on this. So, let's see here. Let me go through the list and shut down the model forecasts and see if the NHC one is in here. I don't see NHC. I need to actually get my list out. I've got a list of all these abbreviations, and I'll share this with you tomorrow. I mean, there's the European ensembles right there. And let's see here. HWRF, going pretty close to the coast there. NGX, that's one of the no-gaps models. I'm not sure if that's the newer one of the windows there. Sorry, I'm a bit hunting and packing here, but I'll get that sorted out tomorrow. It's June, so we are still pretty early in the season here. The system's kind of jumping up on us. Let me take a look at the chat here and see what we got going on. We've got Ryan in here, drying out from all the rain the past 24 hours. Fun with Tech and Alexi. Ryan says the tropics are alive and active this evening. EAS Fan 51 here. Michael Burrell 13. Jim Irwin, that's a new name. And 118 degrees in Phoenix. Thinking, when do we get the max temperature charts? Let me see if I can pull that up here real quick. Max temperature charts, that's going to come from Colorado State. Let me see if I can get that going here. I don't think those come out until maybe 20 after the hour. But we'll give it a shot here, because it has been pretty hot. 19th at 0Z. Okay, that's going to be last night's chart, but we'll look at that. So here's yesterday's temperature data. And we can see lots of hundreds. 106 there at San Angelo and Sanderson. And 111 out at Safford. 115 there at, I think that's Blythe. 119 at Needles. And 111 at Vegas. And I think that is pretty close to the, at least when I was there, that was the all-time record. That probably has been eclipsed. And I know a couple days ago we had Lubbock hitting 112, so that was pretty significant. 111 there at Midland. This is back on Saturday. So, yeah, 112 at Eagle Pass. That was definitely some serious heat there. East Texas, that's the place to be. 80s in that region. I'll leave this up and we'll check back on that later and see if the data gets updated. Robert Terrell is here in ADW, Burl H. Megan John, a rare thunderstorm warning in Alaska. Really? Okay, that's interesting. See if we can go check that out. I'm going to go straight to the NOAA page, because if anybody's going to have web charts for warnings in Alaska, it's going to be NOAA. They're going to be set up to display that. So let's bring that up, weather.gov. And yeah, there it is right here. That looks like the inland area around Fort Yukon. We'll probably see if we can bring up the radar in that area and see what's going on. Well, that's kind of a new interface there. Let's see, eastern. Yeah, there it is right there. Severe thunderstorm warning for the south central middle Tanana Valley in Alaska. And we'll bring up that warning. The National Weather Service in Fairbanks has issued a severe thunderstorm warning for middle Tanana County or Valley in Alaska. Doppler radar indicating severe thunderstorm capable of producing quarter-sized hail, damaging winds in excess of 60 miles an hour, 7 miles north of Salcha, moving west at 15. Let's check that out on GR level X. GR level 2, we'll head up to Alaska and do an analysis of a storm near the Arctic Circle. For this one, we're going to have to bring up the Fairbanks radar there. And I think that's going to be Pedro Dome there, yeah. Okay, data's coming in. I'm really amazed that they put a Doppler radar network all the way up there, even out on the western coast there. You can sample a little bit of the showers out over Russia. Pretty impressive there. Okay, let's see here. Looks like we got a lot of multicellular storms in the Fairbanks area. Fairbanks is right in here. Let me zoom down. Let me bring up the cities. And this is the Alaska Highway. And that goes on all the way down towards Whitehorse there. So I think the thunderstorm in question is going to be, it could be this one up here, but I think we're looking at this one. And definitely some higher reflectivities in the storm, 65 dBZs. And we're about 44 miles southeast of Alaska, or southeast of Fairbanks. We'll do a quick cross-section of that. If it's moving to the west, the inflow vectors are probably coming in from the west. And we can see a little bit of overhang there. Tops up to about 27,000 feet. There's that overhang there. Let me switch the position a little bit. Yeah, there we can see the hail core. And there's some of the overhang right there, based at 15 to 20,000 feet. So probably a good updraft base underneath there. Some good photography maybe from the highway. It's about 7 miles away, so I'm not too sure how that would come out. I would bet there's probably no chasers on that storm. And here's the tops. Let's see here. Here's the core. We'll put a marker on that. And this is, yeah, out in the overhang area. So our storm apparently propagating to the west, and there it goes there. So that'll be definitely tracking into the populated areas along the Alaska Highway there. And I'm sure it'll probably dissipate before it gets anywhere near Fairbanks. So very cool there. And let's check out the velocity real quick. Velocities are on the weak side. About 5 knots of shear, that's about it. And while we're at it, you can see the environmental wind flow. Usually I'll go up to a higher tilt to kind of pick that out, get rid of some of the ground clutter. And you can see that this whole area here is outbound. And this here area is inbound. So the general flow near the surface is from the northeast. And the fact that the zero line is pretty straight indicates that we don't have much of a sheared environment. There's a little bit of a discontinuity down on the south part, so we may have a little bit of maybe mesoscale circulation going on in there, disrupting the flow. I mean, it certainly looks like there's something in here, maybe a bit of yeah, those are the other storms coming in, moving into the Fairbanks area. So yeah, there's some neat stuff to look at. Maybe we'll come back to that, check on that later. Okay, back down in the U.S., let's check that out. Texas is underneath a northeasterly flow. High pressure up in Arkansas in the Ozarks. Low pressure in the Rio Grande Valley. So that's given us kind of a easterly gradient, which means upslope flow. That means adiabatic cooling, condensation, higher relative humidities. And then down to the south, it looks like we're picking up that little disturbance out there in the Gulf of Mexico. Let's see what the impact on the moisture field has been. We'll check out the dew point. And let's see here. The blue is the 72 line. Looks like a little bit of drier air filtering into Arkansas, into Oklahoma there, and starting to move into the Shreveport and Dallas area. So maybe a bit of a boundary moving south. But one place we got weather going on is on the East Coast here. We've got showers all the way from Portland, Maine, all the way down through Boston, New York, and down to around the Richmond area of Virginia. Fortunately, these are on their way out very quickly, and these are along a cold front. And let me see if I can bring out that front using the, let's try using the potential temperature. Okay, the potential temperature is going to be the red lines. So what do we see here? We've got, this is all the Gulf Stream current, or let's see here. What is that? 287, 290. Okay, that's the cooler ocean waters there. And you can see the effect of the lakes on the model there, kind of disrupting the fields a little bit, so you got to be careful using this data from the models. Now, where we do have a legitimate gradient is in Ohio. See this right here? We go to the warm side of that gradient, and we've got some sort of front or outflow boundary from about Champaign to north of Cincinnati. And maybe that extends on up to the Pittsburgh area. But overall, this is driven by a synoptic scale cold front, so there is colder air coming back in behind that boundary there. Okay, just a slight risk out for the west coast there. And we can see that in the long wave patterns, we've got a little bit of ridging building on the west coast there, troughing in the central U.S. and ridging out over Newfoundland. So that's given us a pattern looking like this at 250 millibars. So there's the ridging. Looks like a little bit of wind shear up in Alaska, a little bit of bulk shear. See that 30 knots right there over Fairbanks? Remember, the storm is moving this way. Upper level flow moving that way, so there's very good anvil ventilation of that storm in the upper levels. So that's one reason prompting that severe warning. Polar front jet from British Columbia all the way down to Iowa and back up to Quebec. Let's take a closer look at that and go up to 200 millibars. There's our 150 knot jet over the Dakotas, and we've got a pretty strong subtropical jet over Florida, over Georgia, Alabama. Seeing a few 55 and 60 knot winds around Charleston and Atlanta. And this here over California, this could be a subtropical jet, or it could be a part of a polar front jet. Which one, I'm not sure. I think we did have a cold air mass over California a few days ago, so that could be a remnant of a old polar jet in that area. Okay, let's go to 700 millibars here and check out the capping. 10 degrees Celsius line running from Bat Grand Junction to Dodge City down to north of Fort Worth and north of Shreveport. And then the 12 line running like this. This is outlining the stronger capping. And you can see how carefully I'm drawing these lines here. 14, I'm very careful not to smooth these over and ignore the data. So the 14 goes south of Amarillo. Then the 16 goes up through Santa Fe, right through Midland, right through Del Rio, then back this way, and then we come up with the 18 right there over El Paso. So the stronger capping is over the West Texas area. The weaker capping is found in northeastern Oklahoma there and in Arkansas. A little bit of the capping was at 850 from what we saw in the SCUTs yesterday, and with the 21 Celsius readings there at Oklahoma City this morning, yeah, I think we've got some of that capping in place right there. However, we do got a boundary. You can see the northerly winds here, a little bit of a mesoscale circulation over Kansas. See that, a bit of a 850 meso high. And to the south, pretty weak tropical flow, maybe 15 knots coming up from the Gulf, 20 at Del Rio. So no wonder that MCS died out this morning. It just didn't have much present to feed it. Okay, let's see here. We'll go to the satellite and look at the clouds before we lost the solar heating, before the sun went down, and we see a lot of debris cloud through central Texas. So that's the old remnants of the MCS. And about the only deep convection we have is in the southwest Houston area. Looks like we do got one storm going up around the Fort Stockton area. So probably some very strong heating in place there. We'll check out the SCUTs and see what that looks like. Midland SCUT for this morning was looking like this here. And we can see that they were very strongly capped. 25 Celsius there. So why are we seeing a thunderstorm there? Could be a combination of orographics and very strong heating. Let's do a surface temperature of 105. Okay, that's going to be about 41 Celsius. So we're going to start way over here. And then we average the moisture, the lowest 150 millibars, and that will clear the cap. So we just need some very extreme heating. Mid 100s will do it, and I think that's probably what we had going on there. Either that or something may have weakened the cap earlier today. And look at that dry air aloft. We know that that's a factor for strong downburst winds, so if that storm persists out there near Midland, there may need to be warnings on that. Let me move down to that area and we'll check out Midland. Okay, Midland data is coming up, and that Fort Stockton area is right down there. So yeah, there's that storm right there. Some pretty decent reflectivities in there, about 64 dBz's. So possibly some hail reaching the surface. Tops on the storm are looking to be about in the 45 to 48,000 range. Higher tops, or the stronger core aloft, looks like it's right in this area, pretty much directly overlying the low-level pattern there. So it looks like right now these are, for the most part, non-severe in terms of supercells, nothing like that going on. There's certainly the potential here for wind and maybe hail if the freezing level is low enough, or the hail is, or if the hail is large enough. But in any case, these are non-severe structures, and I'll show that to you with a cross section. A little bit of overhang there, so maybe I'm misjudging that a little bit. So yeah, there's the overhang right there. Okay, so we're going to bear that in mind. So let's see, that didn't quite match up with what we saw earlier. Yeah, okay, there it is. If we go down in the mid-levels, you can see right here, if I drop a dot right there, this is up at about 22,000. Yeah, that's out ahead. There's a little bit of separation there between the low-level core and the mid-level core. So I think that's a reminder there to make sure you look at all the levels, or look at a cross-section to see what's going on right there. But these cells propagating to the northeast, and updraft bases on the south side there. Okay, let me take a look at the chat here. Raining in Antarctica from Megan John. Lloyd McCarter says 2 rounds of southeasterly moving storms, little rain if at all. Ryan says check the NHC NOAA charts. Okay, yeah, I'll check those if I know which ones to look at. Ryan says system has remained stationary the past 12 hours. Okay. NHC has the plot and updates from 8 p.m. update forecast track. Okay, I guess that's buried in their site somewhere. I'll see if I can bring that up real quick. This is the 5-day tropical outlook, and this is kind of what I started with when I started the program here. And let's see, there's the movement track. There we go. So that's what Ryan is talking about. So we're bringing potential tropical cyclone 3 up north around south of Louisiana on Wednesday, and then up towards the Shreveport area Thursday. And normally these tropical storms, they carry very high amounts of precipitable water, so I would definitely expect flooding risks anywhere along the track of this thing, especially on the east side and along the center line. Okay, so we're looking at midweek here for problems in Louisiana and East Texas. And let's see if we have anything on Brett. Yeah, there we go. Pretty much approximating the center of those dynamic models that we were looking at earlier. But definitely some chances for that to intensify out in the Caribbean, and that could be in our neck of the woods in several days. So we'll monitor that. Okay, let's see. Back to the other charts here. I've got about 32 windows open. Okay, there's our thickness. This gives us an idea where the fronts are. It looks like we do have a weak frontal boundary on the East Coast. We're looking at mostly at the synoptic scale here. So you remember when I was tracing out that outflow boundary from about Cincinnati to Champaign? That's not going to reflect well on the synoptic scale charts. This is more indicative of the large scale air mass covering North America, and this is good for general prediction a few days out. So this kind of gives us the big picture here. So cold front all the way down to the Carolinas, and maybe a new warm front from Wyoming down to the Central Plains. I don't know if that's a frontogenesis area or a frontalysis area, but it does look like some sort of boundary right through there. And then on the East Coast, looks pretty quiet. I think this is the next front coming in here. And looking something like that right there. Okay. Next product, let's see, we're going to bring this up here and try to scroll back. Oh yeah, this is something I wanted to show you here. This is the polar orbiter data. And we can see our system there in the central Gulf of Mexico. A lot of mid and high cloud. Then as we get into Texas, there's the remains of that MCS moving south. And then we see a distinct lack of low cloud in the Central Plains here. So this shows us that our moisture field has been disrupted. And as I remember, that's due to the northeasterly component filtering through this area. And then up at the Great Lakes, we see what looks like some open cell cumulus and towers. This is the cold core system, pretty much right over the Great Lakes. And let me see if I can show that to you real quick. Yeah, the center of the cold air mass is in this area right here, so this is a good area to expect low heights aloft, like up in this area here. So let me see if I can go to the upper level charts. Yep, 700 millibars, low pressure out over western Ontario. And let's see here, 500 millibars, low heights out in this area, and low temperatures, 18 Celsius in Minnesota and Wisconsin. So that's going to set the stage there for unstable conditions. Very unstable profile there. I tried looking at some radar data out in Mexico. It appears that they have downscaled. Let me see if I can bring up the radar again. Let's see, Mexico Weather Service. Yeah, I took a look at their website, and they are missing a few of the critical radars that we used to have out in the Gulf of Mexico. And we're especially referring to Cancun right here. That radar seems to be gone. And there was another radar right there. So I guess they're having some major budget problems there. I know there were other radars here and up here. Those are gone. So, yeah, that's regrettable. I guess Cuba has about the only good network in this area here. And Jamaica does have one radar. So we can't really look at this track or look at this storm except with satellite data and the reconnaissance missions out there. We're kind of confined to that until it comes within range of the 248 nautical mile products along the coast. Okay, we'll take a look at the forecast. Let's see here. High resolution rapid refresh, bringing the MCS quickly offshore. And that's out of the picture, and you can see the lower thicknesses coming in behind. Cold front sweeping eastward, and probably a nice midweek there in the northeast. On the high-resolution rapid refresh in the Gulf, we can see that system coming northward. And you can see the track of the high-resolution rapid refresh here, going for some intensification of that system and definitely bringing it up towards Louisiana right there. And I don't know what the skill of the HRRR model is with these tropical systems, but I guess we shall see. And then right here we have the standard NAM model. And you can see that's bringing the system into Texas through Beaumont and up to Lufkin and up to the Longview area. So going a little bit further west. So let's check out the dew point fields. Here's the GFS model. For tomorrow night, GFS going for the system just south of Louisiana, and you can see that we're advecting drier air into Texas and into Arkansas, into Tennessee. And that little boundary I talked about, like a warm front, looks like it's kind of in this area right here. But I think we're mostly dominated here by a lee side troughing and maybe a bit of a thermal low. Not very much going on inland, maybe a bit of a front up in Alberta here. Then for Wednesday, GFS wants to bring the system onshore right around Lake Charles. Picking up a little bit of moisture here in Iowa and Missouri, probably evapotranspiration taking effect there. Dry line starting to lose definition though. Moisture not doing too well in Texas itself. It does look like a little bit of a front coming southward right there. You see that coming down. For Thursday, we bring our system into, GFS wants to bring it into East Texas also. And that kind of follows the trend of everything moving everything westward. And NHC going a little bit less severe with that. Next, cold front coming southward. And then for Friday evening, the remains of our tropical system. I don't know, where did they go? Yeah, they're kind of fizzling out here around the Arklatex area. according to the GFS. New cold front coming south. We don't have very good inflow up to that front, so if we have a pretty strong cap, that may keep things pretty well shut down. Cold front moves pretty fast southward on Saturday. And we definitely do have the potential for some upslope storms out in West Texas. We'll keep an eye on that. And I'll do a quick scoot back there behind the polar air mass. Looks like capping is pretty weak, so we may have rain in the forecast this weekend for Texas. Lift that with 85. Yeah, that's definite rain there, so I would expect some widespread showers there. For Sunday, high pressure moving into the Midwest and driving that cold front further south. That should become quasi-stationary around the Gulf. Tuesday and Wednesday, high pressure absorbing into the Bermuda High. Return flow starting on the Great Plains. This is on the 28th. And the moisture starts coming north 29th and 30th. Couple systems moving through the Great Lakes. And let's see here at the very end. There's July 4th. Looks like maybe a warm front up in the Minneapolis area. Cold front south through the Denver area, so probably a good chance for thunderstorms around Sioux Falls and maybe Minneapolis, maybe Wisconsin. And I think everywhere else should be pretty good. Maybe a few air mass storms down in the southeast U.S. Anywhere we're away from the stronger capping. But the moisture does look pretty weak in the Georgia and Florida area, so most of that air mass thunderstorm activity, I think, would be mostly in the Mississippi River Basin there. Okay, severe thunderstorm warning just ended where Brett Dean is. Got very windy, no hail. Southern Rebel checking in. Brett Dean, severe went from 90 to 70 in southern Jersey. Southern Rebel trying to talk on the CB radio, couldn't get anybody to talk back. Yeah, I did. I had a CB radio about 15 years ago. Used that for car trips to look for speed traps and that kind of thing, and that was definitely entertaining stuff. Brett Dean, more thunder showers occurring right now. Burl H says Needles reporting 120 degrees right now along the California-Nevada border. Let me see if I can bring that up. Aviation Weather Center, METAR. And we'll go to the plots for the southwest U.S., and there we go. Showing 121 there at Needles. Yep, 111 at Vegas. That is some serious heat there underneath that ridge. 116 at Gila Bend. 112 at Tucson. That's also unusual, and we've got 115 at Phoenix, but the record there I think is 120 or 121. But let's take a look at that upper level pattern, and we can see why we've got that intense heating. This is the 200 millibar chart, and this is showing the ridging. If you were underneath the ridge in the summertime, you were going to get baked, and this is what's happening right there in Arizona. Center of the high pressure area, right around Winslow. So, yeah, keep an eye on that ridge position, especially in the GFS forecast when you're looking for temperatures in your neck of the woods. And I was going to take a quick look at the higher terrain there and see where did my map go here? Yeah, there we go. Yeah, I was looking at this area. I don't really know what the normals are up on the Mogollon Rim and up around Gallup. At 94, that sounds kind of high. 102 at Winslow, that's probably also pretty high for that area. Yeah, so a bit of a heat wave in that area. 97 at Tonopah, and when I worked at Tonopah, I don't think we ever saw anything over 95 when I was there. All right. EAS Fan 51 says the storms are massive. Ryan says commercial flights, private, all hosed up as usual tonight up and down the East Coast. Mike Estwick is checking in, and Ryan Toomey's saying good evening. Mike Estwick is late. Tom Savage has an ear infection in a motel in Fort Stockton near those storms there. He's in the pool, not fun. Hot and dry in Denver, hot and humid in Houston, miserable from Tom Savage. Ryan there checking out the charts there. Carl Berghoff made it in. And Ryan is looking for landfall on the southeastern coastline of Louisiana, right into the Mississippi as a depression. So models are trying to take things eastward into Texas, and NHC and Ryan looking for a more easterly landfall there. Lloyd McCarter says interesting combination of factors in Texas later in the week. Tom Savage says agreed, Lloyd. Lloyd says plan to follow more closely and the tropical disturbance path. Tom Savage says, I know, going to be a wild week. I'm ready. Brett says, thanks, Tim. Missed you for a while. Been busy. Thanks. Like and subscribe, and I will donate once funds get better. Yeah, I might as well throw that graphic up here. If you're able to throw a few bucks there, please send that in to patreon.com/metlab. That will help keep these broadcasts going, and that will keep me away from doing this programming that you see here. This editor acts really weird when I've got the Open Broadcaster software going. I'm trying to show you the source code and stuff like that, but yeah, that's digital atmosphere. If I'm not working on the broadcasts, I'm working on this. And I've also got a bunch of Delphi documentation I'm trying to read up on and get familiar with some of the ins and outs of the code. Anyway, one other thing I wanted to bring up, the eclipses. I don't know how many of you are aware of this, but there's going to be a total eclipse in the U.S. in about 6 or 7 weeks from now. Let me go back here. Yeah, I had some charts up for this. Let me clear things out and I'll show this to you. Okay, this eclipse is on Monday, August 21st. And there's the path right there. This is around midday, starting there just south of Portland in the Salem area. Let me get rid of some of these markings here. And this is going to be tracking just north of Boise, across Wyoming, straight through Nebraska, across St. Joseph, north of Kansas City, just south of St. Louis, just north of Nashville, and straight through South Carolina there. And I don't know what's going to be going on with this eclipse as far as tourism and stuff like that, but one of my friends, one of my coworkers I worked with at Tonopah, her husband works for DHS, and they're talking about some of the freeways here being gridlocked, like I-55 and some of those other major corridors like I-95. So I'm kind of curious how that's going to play up. I'm not sure how. I'm going to try to make it out to this eclipse, and I'm either going to fly. If there's no flights available, I'm probably going to drive it and maybe hit this territory up here in Nebraska. And I like Nebraska because out here you're risking cloud cover. MCSs like to develop in June and August, and move eastward. The debris ends up in this area, and this area here tends to stay a little bit better, so I would be betting on that. And plus you can see the roads here. If there's a major backup on 135 or 35 north, there's plenty of roads here to get around it. So this is not only good chase territory, but it's also good eclipse observing territory. So I don't know how many of you are going to make it up there for that, but also, if you guys can hang out for another 7 years, got another total eclipse, and this one's going through Texas, up to Arkansas, up through Ohio. This is on April 8th of 2024, also a Monday. So I guess that's bad for you who are working during the week. So that's going to be just west of San Antonio. It's going to go right over Waco and Dallas. And I don't know how many of you are going to be here in 2044. We're talking 27 years from now. A lot of us are going to be pretty old, but there's going to be an eclipse up there in Montana. And then the next year, August 12th, 2045, another major eclipse. This one going through Oklahoma to Alabama. 2052, Georgia total eclipse through the Gulf Coast. And then 2078. How many of us are going to be here in 2078? I don't think I'm going to make it to that year. Maybe some of the younger ones here may have a chance of seeing this one. May 11th, 2078, and then there's 2079. That one's on the East Coast. And then the last one of the century, 2099, September 14th. That's up in the northern plains there. So there you go. There's the eclipses there for the century, and I think I'll be definitely catching the 2017 one and absolutely the 2024 one. So it looks like a lot of fun there. Let's see here, reading the chat. Tom Savage had an ear infection when he was 9. Ryan Toomey's talking about that. Bro LH is going to try to make totality in northwest Missouri. Ryan's going to be in the North Carolina, Cashiers, Asheville area. Kevin McKinney says the eclipse passing just up the road from me in Athens, Tennessee. Ryan, have you been up to date with Weather Brains? Been tied up, always interested in both labs, and James Spann. Yeah, James Spann, he used to work for KDFW4 in Dallas, and I met him back in '86 doing a newspaper story on. I started out writing for the suburban newspaper chain there. And I did an article on Harold Taft and James Spann and Troy Dungan there. James Spann on vacation till next week. He did a 3-hour special on Thursday evening last week. And Brett Dean says, good night. And I'm thinking there was one more thing I was going to show you guys. Yeah, what was that I was going to show you guys? It popped in my head when I was going through this eclipse stuff. Well, I guess I'm out of ideas here. Anyway, we'll check on the Fort Stockton storm here real quick before we go. Go down to 0.5, and looks like the storm is starting to die out here can see that fizzling there. And I think Tom said he was near that storm. He's right there in a motel watching it go by. And the storms are definitely dying out. Let's take a cross section. There's what a dying storm looks like right there. So you see mostly a lot of anvil and kind of a small downdraft core right there. And at this point, it is almost entirely downdraft material. Okay, I think that's about all I got for today. And I appreciate you watching, and hopefully you can all make it back tomorrow. Have a good evening, and we'll see you then. Take care.